If you were listening to the radio feed from New Hampshire Motor Speedway on Sunday, August 23, 2026, you heard chaos before you ever saw a green flag. The field was rolling behind the pace car on wet weather tires, rain still hanging in the air, officials trying to figure out if the Dollar Tree 301 could even begin. Then, without warning, the pink number 77 Chevrolet of Carson Hocevar stepped out in turn 4, rotated slowly, and came to a stop facing the wrong direction. The race had not started. There was no green flag. There was no pack of cars diving for position. There was only a single driver testing the limits of a soaked surface in front of 35 other competitors who suddenly had to avoid him. Joey Logano, running near the front of the field in his Team Penske Ford, did not hide what he thought. His radio transmission cut through every other channel with surgical cruelty. "Look at this guy. Look at this idiot," Logano said. The words spread faster than the incident itself. Within minutes, onboard footage captured other voices reacting in real time, one driver asking what Hocevar was doing, another noting that the spin certainly did not help the case for those who wanted to race. The consequence was immediate and practical. NASCAR brought the entire field back to pit road, delaying the start yet again. One slow speed, solo spin behind the pace car stopped hours of careful preparation dead in its tracks. But Hocevar was not finished framing the moment. From his own car, over his own radio, he reported the conditions with calm precision. "It's a little slick off 4, he said, as if he had completed a routine experiment rather than triggered a caution before the race officially existed. Later, he took to social media platform X to defend the decision in his own words. "I much rather test the track when no one's around versus green flag and people around," he wrote. "If no one else was going to test it, I'll do it, lol. The logic is defensible on paper. Discover the danger at pace car speed rather than at full throttle with 35 cars behind you." Yet the explanation did not stay public for long. Hocevar deleted the post shortly after publishing it. The spin remained on every replay. The justification vanished from his account. That deletion became part of the story, but it was not the loudest voice in the room. The loudest voice arrived 2 days later, on the Door Bumper Clear podcast produced by Dirty Mo Media, when Kyle Larson sat down for a conversation that started with personality and ended with an accusation sharp enough to split the sport down the middle. "I don't think you have to totally neuter him, but I almost feel like he's at the point now where he's like doing it even like, it's not really him. It's a piece of him, but he's going above what he really is," Larson said, describing a young driver who had begun performing his own legend rather than simply living inside it. Brett Griffin, co-hosting the discussion, agreed and pushed the point further, suggesting Hocevar was playing a game out there, doing things for attention, clicks, or views. Griffin then delivered the line that should have ended the conversation but instead made it louder. He admitted that Door Bumper Clear discusses Hocevar every single week, and that the coverage is a direct result of the behavior they were criticizing. "They leave the audience no choice," Griffin explained, "because Hocevar does something notable constantly." It was inside that very discussion, while acknowledging the paradox of criticizing a stunt and simultaneously broadcasting it, that Larson delivered the sentence that traveled across every NASCAR feed within hours. "I mean, spinning out before the race? That was 1000% just to get on TV," Larson said. "The wording matters. Not possibly. Not probably. 1000%. Larson left no percentage points for misunderstanding. He believes Carson Hocevar lost control of his car on purpose, or at least engineered the situation, specifically so the cameras would capture him before a single competitive lap had been run. There was no contact in a corner. There was no battle for position. There was no green flag waving in the air. Just a wet track, a pace car, and what Larson views as a calculated decision to become the center of attention before the event had technically begun. To understand why Larson feels entitled to make that claim, you have to understand the conditions that made the spin possible in the first place. The race was scheduled for Sunday, but officials moved the green flag up by a full hour from the original 3 p.m. Eastern start time, hoping to beat incoming weather. The weather moved faster. Rain reached New Hampshire Motor Speedway before the cars did, leaving the surface soaked as the field circled for pace laps. NASCAR responded by putting every car on wet weather tires, the specialized rubber built specifically for damp conditions on shorter tracks. Those tires allow racing to continue, but they have a hard limit: the surface must be wet, not flooded. That is why those pace laps carried so much weight. Drivers were not just warming engines. They were evaluating grip level, feeding information back through radio, helping officials decide whether 36 Cup Series cars could safely compete. Not every driver agreed the race should happen at all. Joey Logano and his Penske organization made their position clear: team thumbs down. Carson Hocevar went the opposite direction. Team thumbs up. He was willing to find out exactly how slippery the racetrack really was. He found out in front of everybody. The sequence itself is simple in replay but complex in interpretation. Hocevar accelerated past the pace car, pushing the edge of the available traction, and the rear of the number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet stepped out in turn 4. The car rotated. The field behind him slowed. The caution lights did not need to come on because the green flag had never been shown, yet the damage to the schedule was already done. Hocevar's defense, even in its deleted form, raises a legitimate racing question. Is it better for one driver to establish that a surface is dangerous at low speed, accepting personal embarrassment, rather than forcing the entire field to discover the same truth at racing speed with cars packed together? Tyler Reddick, who started the race from pole position after qualifying at 29.054 seconds, provided an unintentional answer when he spun exiting turn 4 once the race finally did begin, bringing out the first official caution and collecting damage behind him. John Hunter Nemechek later hit the wall in the number 40 Legacy Motor Club Toyota. The surface was genuinely treacherous. Hocevar's critics can argue he was testing conditions. His defenders can point to those later spins and say his caution was justified. Larson, however, separates this spin from every other one precisely because of the context: no flag, no competition, no pressure. Just television cameras rolling. But Larson's criticism did not stop with one spin. On the same podcast, he moved from personality to on-track conduct, describing a driver who, in his view, loses control of his decision-making once a race begins. "I think he just blacks out," Larson said. He then referenced an incident at Iowa Speedway that never made the television broadcast. Larson says he was running directly behind Hocevar and watched the sequence unfold over multiple laps. Hocevar, already lapped, began trying to spear Christopher Bell, who was actively fighting for playoff position, for 2 consecutive laps. Larson, positioned behind both of them, could not understand the motivation. The camera didn't catch it at Iowa, but he was trying to spear Bell when he got lapped for like the second time, Larson said. He was trying to spear Christopher Bell for 2 laps. "I'm behind him like, what are you doing?" The details give that claim its weight. A lapped driver has nothing to gain in the standings. A playoff contender has everything to lose. And Larson was close enough to see the intent in real time, not through a replay but through a windshield. Larson then summarized what he sees as a repeating pattern rather than an isolated mistake. "That's what I don't understand. You admit that you wrecked yourself, but then you still go out and run right through him the next chance you get," he said. "That loop at mid-fault, then repeat the action, played out again at New Hampshire in the same race where the pace lap spin occurred." Hocevar attempted to cover the bottom lane before completing a pass on Connor Zilisch, moved across the front of the other car, and spun himself. He accepted responsibility for turning his own car around. Then he made contact with Zilisch again later in the same event on the same afternoon. Admit the mistake. Repeat the mistake. That is the cycle Larson described, and New Hampshire provided a live demonstration within a single race. Brett Griffin summarized the situation with the phrase that fits best. He called Hocevar Mr. Excitement, adding that for better or worse, he finds himself on television every week somehow. None of this means Larson doubts Hocevar's ability. In fact, the contradiction is what makes the criticism so pointed. Speaking on the Bus In with the Boys podcast in June 2026, Larson was asked directly for his opinion of the young Spire Motorsports driver. "Honestly, I respect his talent. I think he's extremely good and fast," Larson said. "I like his aggressiveness even, but I would say it goes overboard a lot of the time. He went further in the same interview, placing Hocevar in a category reserved for very few young competitors.
He's phenomenal. He outruns his teammates by a lot every week.
He's really good. He's going to be around for a long time and he's going to win a lot of races, Larson said.
That is not the language of jealousy.
That is the language of a two-time defending Cup Series champion and driver of the number 5 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet, with 32 career victories, recognizing that the competitor he is criticizing possesses elite speed.
The immaturity critique followed immediately after.
Larson referenced Hocevar's Twitch streaming presence, where he plays video games and interacts with fans. For me, he's young, but he's more immature than what his age is, Larson said.
I have his little Twitch stream thing pop up on my Instagram feed every now and then, and I'm like, dude, this guy is like an 8-year-old. That's where I lose a little bit of respect because I'm like, this guy could be the future of our sport and he's acting like he's 8 years old. Then, on Door Bumper Clear, prompted specifically by Tommy Baldwin, Larson described Hocevar as maybe the most talented out there. The assessment carries enormous weight because of who delivers it.
Hocevar's statistics support part of Larson's praise. The 23-year-old is in his third full-time Cup Series season with Spire Motorsports. He reached as high as 5th in the point standings earlier in 2026 before falling back toward the playoff cut line. His breakthrough victory came at Talladega Superspeedway in April, his first in the Cup Series, the kind of result that validates raw potential. Spire Motorsports clearly believes in that potential, signing Hocevar to a multi-year contract extension in February that keeps him in the number 77 Chevrolet through the next decade. Yet the personality remains the lightning rod. At Loudon, after making contact with Connor Zilisch, Hocevar caught back up to the number 88 Chevrolet and forced door-to-door contact, pushing the rookie out of line. Earlier in the season at Indianapolis, he delivered a well-known hand gesture to Corey Heim after being blocked for track position. The moments accumulate, and each one feeds the narrative that Larson articulated, talent without the filter required to manage it.
There is another side that never entered the podcast conversation. A 27-year-old fan from North Carolina wrote publicly that he had drifted away from NASCAR for years until Hocevar brought him back. He described buying a Hocevar hat at Martinsville, the first piece of NASCAR merchandise he had owned in over 15 years, and noted he had since pre-ordered the full 2026 paint scheme collectible set. That is measurable impact. That is the split.
Hocevar is either a breath of fresh air or an unnecessary distraction, and the responses rarely settle in between. After the New Hampshire race, Hocevar finished 19th and posted on social media about the progress he and his team have made across 3 seasons, with the playoffs approaching. The message was measured, professional, and largely ignored in favor of the pre-race spin and Larson's reaction to it.
The paradox Griffin identified remains unresolved.
The podcast criticized Hocevar for seeking attention, then devoted significant airtime to analyzing him.
The audience consumed every second of it.
Larson accused Hocevar of spinning for television coverage, and the accusation itself generated exactly that coverage: headlines, debate threads, reaction videos, and this very breakdown.
The mechanism is self-sustaining.
As the Cup Series moves toward the final regular season race and the playoffs begin, every move from the number 77 car will be magnified. The question Larson posed, whether the spin was genuine testing or pure performance, has no official answer on the record. Hocevar says he was protecting the field from danger at speed. Larson assigns it 1,000% to television.
Now the decision belongs to you.
Do you believe Carson Hocevar spun behind the pace car to test a wet surface and protect other drivers? Or do you side with Kyle Larson, who sees a pattern of calculated attention-seeking backed by elite talent running without a leash? If you follow NASCAR every week and you want the stories that actually matter before they become headlines, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now and turn notifications on. Drop a comment below telling us exactly which moment you think defined this entire debate: the spin, the radio call, the deleted post, or Larson's podcast accusation. Like this video if you think Hocevar's talent is worth the chaos, and share it with someone who still thinks NASCAR is just turning left. We will be here breaking down every lap, every radio transmission, and every controversy the sport throws at us. Thanks for watching, stay fast, and we will see you at the track.
Lysis, NASCAR fan debate.